Hi, hello, and welcome to this video where initially we were just going to talk about the liquid Lurex eyeshadows from Eldridge because I just picked those up. But in the meantime, I've also received her new eyeliner, so I figured it is a time as good as any to talk about both. So I'm going to break down this video for you. I'm going to say just a few words, introductory words about the liquid Lurex eyeshadows. Then you're going to see demos with each of these, and in the last demo you're also going to see me use the new eye pencils, and then I'm going to give you my final thoughts. So to start off with, these are not new. These have been on the market for at least a good amount of time, like 1.5 to 2 years by now, and I had sworn off liquid eyeshadows for a very long time after the Stila Glitter and Glow eyeshadow fiasco. These were like this beautiful formula from Stila that was released quite a few years ago. They were again liquid eyeshadows, super glittery, super pretty on the lids, but eventually they dried out and they were very expensive. You have no idea how much money I had to toss in the bin a couple of years ago when I finally decided that it's time for me to, you know, relinquish the hope that I'm ever going to be able to use these again because they were super dried out. I did actually try to revive them with a little bit of the Inglot Duraline, but it didn't really quite work out for me. I think there was maybe something with the formulas, Duraline being quite oil-based and the other ones maybe being a little bit more water-based that really wasn't meshing. But in the end, I wasn't able to salvage them. I tossed them, and then I thought, you know, lesson learned, never again am I buying liquid eyeshadows. So for the longest time I had sworn off liquid eyeshadows, and that's why I hadn't purchased any of these. But as I mentioned also recently in my monthly roundup and empties, I became quite curious about the liquid eyeshadow formula from Pat McGrath. I bought 2 of the shades from Pat McGrath, the shades Luna Rose and Platinum Bronze, secondhand, so quite cheap. I fell in love with the formula, and I kind of like not invented, because I'm really not that smart, but like I started using these eyeshadows as toppers for especially my luxury eyeshadow formulas, because a lot of my luxury eyeshadows, I love how they look on the lid. Like, think of something like my Guerlain Quads or my Lancome Quint, but they don't really have a lot of sparkle, and I do need that extra sparkle in my life. So I, you know, kind of like designed this new way in my brain of combining these 2 textures together, and I've been having so much fun with that that I basically acquired 6 liquid eyeshadows in the span of like 1.5 or 2 months tops. So I have the 2 liquid eyeshadows from Pat McGrath, which I have already featured on my channel. I can link the video up in the cards for you if you're interested. And today we're going to talk about the 4 liquid eyeshadows that I picked up from Eldridge. So the shades that I purchased are Emily, Anais, Zora and Titania. Let me show you quickly the swatches for those. So we have here the shade Emily, which is like a minky taupe with glitter, Anais, which is a sage green loaded with glitter, Zora, which is a cooler chocolate brown loaded with glitter, and this extremely interesting eyeshadow Titania, which is like a darkened blackened gold bronze kind of shade. Really pretty. These are more opaque swatches of the color so that you can really see them. Let's see whether I can blend out one of these for you to show you how I like to use them the most. So I like to use them like this, very much sheared out, because when you shear them out they truly become wet looking, glittery and absolutely delightful. Actually, one of the reasons that made me pretty confident that these are not going to dry out and will be a better investment than the Stila Glitter and Glows is that a lot of you have had these since the beginning, since they launched, and you have vouched for these not changing their formula. So I hold you accountable if they dry out. Anyway, I think this is pretty much all I wanted to say in terms of introduction, and now I'm just going to leave you with the demo and the 3 looks that I created using these liquid Lurex eyeshadows from Eldridge. For bronzer, I'm going to take the Victoria Beckham Bronzing Brick in the shade 2, and I'm kind of going to mix the two shades. I decided to do a little speed through of my base makeup because I know some of you actually enjoy seeing how I do my base makeup, but at the same time I've already shown this routine in several of my previous videos because as I mentioned, I was recently on holiday, I've got a bit of a tan, and I literally have only one product per category for when I'm a little bit more tan. So you've already seen me do this phase, but you know, just in case you are new and you don't know what I do currently for my base makeup routine, and because I know some of you actually enjoy that part, I decided to include it, but like kind of speed through it. And this is also going to be the base makeup routine that I'm going to do for all of the looks for this video, so I'm not going to show it anymore. This is the only look where I'm going to incorporate the base makeup, and for the rest we're just going to do the bronze blush, highlighter, and then obviously the eyeshadow together. I decided to go for the Victoria Beckham bronzer because it has a little bit more like neutral to cooler undertones to it, and the look that I'm going for today will heavily feature, well, it will feature the Vega palette as well as some of the more neutral eyeshadows that I picked up from the Liquid Lurex line. So I figured the Victoria Beckham Bronzing Brick will be the absolute perfect bronzer for this look. I'm going to keep it low-key and neutral. I'm going to take the Armani Luminous Silk Blush in the shade 10, which I am still basically deciding what I really think about, because I've used it a couple of times, but I don't know that any of the times that I used it, I really felt like a deep emotional connection to it. I like it well enough, but it doesn't evoke the same feelings in me as it does in Martina, at least not for now. And I still sort of prefer my Gucci blushes, I think, in pretty much every aspect. I like the packaging of the Gucci blushes a little bit more. I like the colors because the formulas are actually rather similar. They're both this like very lightweight, soft focus matte with a little bit of a sheen to it. So in terms of a formula, honestly, the two blush lines are pretty like comparable in my opinion, and I do quite enjoy both of them, but perhaps because the colors that I have from the Gucci line are slightly better suited for my skin, I think I slightly favor those. Although today with the Victoria Beckham Bronzing Brick, I actually quite like the combination. Sometimes it's all about nailing the correct combination of products for you to be really able to appreciate a certain bronzer or a certain blush. I don't really have that with highlighters, but with blush and a bronzer specifically, sometimes I'll be like, I don't know, it's fine, but like I don't love it. And then I'll combine products together and all of a sudden the spark will be there. Today I'm actually quite enjoying the Armani blush together with the bronzer from Victoria. I'm going to highlight with this really old NARS Holiday Collection highlighter palette, and I basically just kind of like always do some sort of like a random mix between the three highlighters that are present in here. So I'll just do a little bit of this one and this one, sort of sticking with like the more neutrally pinky tones, I guess. NARS is one of those brands that I have very little actual like representatives of in my collection, but what I do have is really solid quality. I'm going to set the powders on my face with a little bit of Fix Plus. I always spritz a little bit of that on my Real Techniques sponge. On a totally unrelated note, FYI, before I forget, does anyone know when Sonia G will be coming out with her fundamental eye set? Because I am intent on getting myself a full size of this brush because it is now part of her fundamental face set that just came out very recently with that beautiful, is it walnut, the handle of the brush? I don't know, some beautiful type of wood. And the thing is, I really like this brush and I would like to have another one of it, but making an order from Beautylish is a little bit of an expensive endeavor for me, so I'd rather be combining orders, but I have no idea when she's planning on releasing the fundamental eye brushes. If that's going to be a year from now, then there's really no point in me waiting, but if it is, you know, soon enough, I would like to wait. So if anyone has any information about that, please do let me know. So like I said, the first thing I'm going to grab is my Vega palette, and I'm going to take the two matte eyeshadows in here to put through my crease and outer corner, and then we're going to do the two liquid eyeshadows. I'm going to use both of these today, the shades Emily and Zora, but we'll go back to those in a little bit. I'm just going to take a fluffy brush now and go into this lighter one and slightly mix it in with the deeper brown, because I don't know that it's going to show up at all on me right now, or it might look a little bit too ashy. So I'm going to just mix the two together, and then I'm going to build this one up in the outer corners. And this is all working out very well, because I had pulled out a couple of my eyeshadow palettes that I haven't used in a while, because I want to revisit them. And my Sorcery and Vega palettes were definitely on the list of palettes that I needed and wanted to revisit. So doing this video is actually very welcome to support this desire to revisit these palettes. So I just kind of made a mix of the two. This is turning relatively cool toned, but the two mattes in the Vega palette, especially the lighter one, always pull extremely cool toned on me. I'm going to take a stiff pencil brush. This is the one from Soneji, and I'm going to go into the deeper brown shade. And let's see how that actually goes here in the outer corner. It might not be dark enough for what I'm going for, or maybe I'm not going for anything too dark today. So I'm just going to try to intensify the outer corners a tiny bit more before we go in with the liquid eyeshadows. So I'm just going to immediately go into the two liquid Lurex eyeshadows. Like I mentioned, we're going to use Zora and Emily, and I'm going to start off with Zora. So Zora is this color here, which I would describe, and actually it's the way Lisa Eldridge herself describes it, as a neutral to cool chocolate brown loaded with cool tone silvery sparkle. Now, I don't really like using these straight from the applicator, because I just feel like that is a disaster waiting to happen with over application. So I would just rather apply a little bit here on the back of my hand, and then use a brush, like a flat shader brush like this one here. This is from M-Brush by Maxineshka. Pick up the product and then apply it onto the eyes. And I'm going to start applying this shade here on the lid and outer portion of the eye. And I'm actually very curious, because I have used all of these shades, but I've used them as like really sheer toppers. I've never really built them to a somewhat, you know, more opaque state. So I'm actually very curious how they're gonna go. And again, it's one of those formulas, I feel like, just with the Pat McGrath one, where the more you blend out, the sheerer layer you apply, the more you're going to reveal that sparkle. So for example, now it's looking very metallic, but I don't know that it is as sparkly as it could be if I were, for example, to sheer it out even more. It is still really, really pretty though. I'm sure that it will be very sparkly if I were to shine an artificial light on it. I'm just commenting on that because I feel like it also contributes to the versatility of these eyeshadows, that you can either use them as like a really opaque color, or you can use them as really sheer toppers. I am going to slightly give everything a little blend here before this eyeshadow has completely set. Obviously it's a liquid eyeshadow, at some point it will sort of set a little bit, and if you wait too long, blending will become more difficult. And for example, I think on this eye I definitely applied a little bit more, so you can see that it's just a little bit more thick. I have a bit of a gap here, let me fix that. And on this eye, I feel like I applied it a bit more sheerly. I don't know whether that's coming across, and you can see a little bit more of like that sparkle and a little bit less texture in a way, which I actually prefer. I think this is the way I like these eyeshadows to look like. This is a little bit too textured for my taste. And I'm going to go into the other shade that I have, which is the shade Emily. And Emily is like a taupey, like a light taupe, that is also loaded with sparkle. I like how Lisa Eldridge calls it a minky shade. It is really, really pretty. And again, I'm going to try to not over apply the eyeshadow, because I'm going for the sparkly finish and not the thick opaque color. Although I do want to see this eyeshadow a little bit on its own. I'm going to also put it in my inner corners, because it will give off light, especially if I apply a sheer layer of that. Obviously these two shades residing in the somewhat like cooler to neutral territory make a beautiful combination, but you can also wear them on their own. I've worn them as topper shades for other eyeshadows, both of these, and they look absolutely beautiful that way too. And for my lower lash line, I'm going to grab this Kiko eyeshadow stick. Now, unfortunately, these like more colorful Kiko eyeshadow sticks have been discontinued. And if you've been around my channel for a really long time, you will know I have a big collection of those. And they're my absolute favorite lower lash line, like waterline pops of color. But like I said, a lot of these like really fun colors have been discontinued. This is the shade 31. And I feel like it is kind of the perfect match for my little top here. So I'm going to just apply this on my lower lash line and waterline, and then I'm going to blend it with the little pencil brush from Sonia G that I'm right now going to clean off a little bit. I love these Kiko eyeshadow sticks, by the way. You might not have been around my channel for long enough to see me use them and rave about them. So if you're new to my channel, hello, I adore the Kiko eyeshadow stick formula. I think they're one of the most long-lasting formulas that I've ever put in my waterline. And if you find beautiful colors, you can use them. Basically, the idea is that you can use these as eyeshadows or as an eyeshadow base, or sometimes I use them as like eyeliners or lower lash lines pops of color. Again, a very, very versatile, beautiful formula. I'm going to lightly blend this out and apply another layer because I want it to pop even more. I'm actually going to just apply a little bit here onto the brush itself, because that makes the application, especially in my waterline, a little bit easier because the brush has a smaller surface to it. Oh, isn't that fun? I love it. This specific blue, I want someone to make an exceptional eyeshadow that has this specific tone of blue. It's like a cornflower blue. That is the one I'm looking for. I will never stop, you know, fantasizing about a baked shade from Pat in this color and with a copper duochrome to it. And if you think, wow, this is very random, how did you come up with that? It's not random. I used to have an indie eyeshadow from Notoriously Morbid that had exactly this color and a copper shift to it, and I could never get over how beautiful that eyeshadow was. That's why I'm fantasizing about having the baked formula of it. Daylight isn't exactly doing justice to these liquid Lurex eyeshadows from Lisa Eldridge, so I am going to shine a generous amount of artificial light so you can see how beautifully reflective and sparkly they are. Additionally, you may think that red lipstick is a bit of an odd and bold choice for this look. This is, by the way, Velvet Duchess, also from Lisa Eldridge. I figured we could stick with Lisa Eldridge as much as possible. It is not, my friends. The reason I'm wearing a red lipstick is because I'm also wearing a skirt. You're not gonna be able to see much of that, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you can't really see much of it, but you can see the detailing, you know, with the blue and the red and a little bit of that vanilla cream. And as we all know, I'm all about the matchy-matchy, so that is the reason I'm wearing the blue together with the red lipstick, not because I'm trying to look like the flag of a certain country. Base makeup is done, so now we're going to do bronzer, blush and highlighter together. For bronzer, I'm going to take this, again, older limited edition Too Faced blush in the shade Unicorn Tears. The undertone and the texture of this bronzer remain absolutely phenomenal. I've had this for many years, and even though I actually quite dislike the purple unicorn in here, sometimes I will mix it in with my bronzer because it actually doesn't make too much of a difference, and it will sometimes add this like very interesting purpley ethereal glow to the bronzer. I used to be more into that some years ago, now not so much. Now I really concentrate more on like the actual bronzy part, but the texture and the little bit of like a sheen this bronzer has and this slightly like reddish copper undertone is something I can never get over. On a completely different note, on a blush note, so I've been eyeballing these like RMS baked blushes that Charlotte Holdcroft's always rambling about for a while, and I was hesitating a little bit which shade to get. They honestly all look beautiful, and based on her description of the formula, I'm pretty sure I would probably enjoy all of them, but obviously I have to try one before I commit to more. Short interlude, since we're talking about blush, to show you what I'm going to use actually for blush and highlighter. Today I'm going to take this a very old Nutcracker limited edition MAC collection blush and highlighter duo. This is in the shade Pleasure Model, this is Whisper of Guilt, the beautiful extra dimension baked formula. So recently they released 3 new shades, and I was particularly interested in the shade Crystal Slipper because it looks like a peachy, beigey, nudie kind of shade, super up my speed. But for the life of me, I cannot find that shade online anywhere available within the, like, anyone that ships in the Netherlands or even in the Netherlands. I'm guessing these just aren't quite available around them parts here. So I went on the Sephora. So this is the whole story is about this. I finally placed an order for the first time ever on the Sephora UK website, former Feel Unique. If you didn't know, I had never really purchased anything from there because I was like, yeah, well, I can get most of the brands that I'm interested in here. But they carry RMS Beauty, and coincidentally they were having a 25% flash sale on these RMS blushes, like RMS and the RMS blushes in particular. Again, I couldn't get my mitts on that Crystal Slipper shade because it just isn't available in Europe. Apparently, I have no idea how Charlotte got her hands on them, but I was able to order the shade Maiden Blush, which was my second choice because it is basically a somewhat deeper version of that Crystal Slipper shade. And when I read the description of Maiden Blush, it had cinnamon as the first word, and I was like, cinnamon, meerkat. So I ordered that one, and you know, to make it like a more like worthy order, I figured, okay, I can maybe add something else, like something from a different brand that I've been, you know, looking into trying out. Taking the highlighter now, by the way. And I thought of House Labs, because I know House Labs has this like very similar-ish type of baked formula, just like the RMS one, but I also think they have it as a bronzer. So I was like, okay, you know, maybe I'll go try the House Labs bronzers. Only to find out that they don't ship House Labs to the Netherlands. So there's like still a lot of like restrictions and limitations to what they actually ship to the Netherlands, and I got like super fucking irritated. Like, what is the point if things don't come? Because from what I understand, they just things don't release at the same time on the Sephora UK website as they do on the American Sephora. And most of all, for us Europeans here, what is the fucking point if they are available but like we can't order them? Anyway, I ordered the Maiden Blush from RMS because I remain very intrigued about the formula, and I figured now is as good of a time as ever because they are on sale and they're actually pretty fucking expensive. Also, I didn't get the impression that I have to pay anything at the door. I think it was all prepaid here, so VAT and everything was included in the price. So all in all, I paid I think around 31 euros for the blush, and the shipping was like 6 euros or something of the sorts. So I again paid something in the ballpark of 40 euros, but at least it was a little bit less and it didn't include the shipping. So these are like actually quite expensive. I didn't realize they were so expensive. Okay, I think this should do. So the focus of today's look, or at least part of today's look, is going to be the second liquid Lurex that I want to demo for you. This is the shade Anais, and I'm pronouncing it Anais now instead of Anais because Lisa pronounced it like this. I went back to watch her video and she pronounces this as Anais, and I figured the perfect pairing for Anais is going to be my beautiful NARS Climax palette. NARS Climax was one of the palettes that I had here on my desk because it's one of the palettes that I haven't used in a while, so I wanted to rotate a little bit through the less loved palettes recently. Alright, enough rambling. What I'm going to do now is just take a little bit of this like beigey shade to apply through my crease, and then I'm going to slightly fluff this green one again in like the crease and a little bit through the outer corner. Also, one of you sent me today a screenshot from one of the pages that leaks new makeup releases, and it seems like Pat McGrath Labs are coming out with a third Bridgerton collaboration, to no one's surprise, honestly. There was also, I think the same account had leaked another image of something that looked like a palette that had a little bit of those like purpley browny tones to it, and people were assuming that it's part of the holiday release, and I immediately thought, no, this looks a lot more like Bridgerton, and it also timeline-wise makes a lot of sense because season 3 of Bridgerton is coming out in the winter. So, really not surprising. Curious whether we're going to get any baked shades, because at least with that collection we have been getting a lot of baked shades. Taking the same fluffy brush and just lightly dipping into this green over here which sort of has these like olivey tones to it, but also a lot of like neutrality to the tones. This palette remains such an absolute classic and such a like one-off in my book when it comes to NARS. I really haven't seen NARS do anything interesting after the Climax palette. Were they not paying attention? Did they not realize how much we liked the color story and the formula of this palette? Apparently they weren't taking notes because they never really went back to make another banger like it. And while we're at it, I'm also going to take a smaller brush. This is the... what is this called? The Soft Definer from Sonergy. Going back into the green shade, and I'm going to run that on the lower lashes. And honestly, from this point onwards, I could theoretically just put the Anais eyeshadow all over my lids and call it a day. But because that's not really the way that I intend on using these eyeshadows, I wanted to also demo for you the way that I personally really like using them, which is a little bit more as toppers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the metallic olive shade on the like outer portion of my lid, and the peachy nudie shade on the inner portion of my lid and inner corners, and I'm going to apply Anais sort of as a topper in the center of my lids. These shades are on their own also like a little bit sparkly. They're the type of formula that becomes very sheeny and very wet looking when you apply again that like lighter layer. They're otherwise quite dense, but when you apply them with a brush and like sort of shear them out, they become beautifully sheeny. Okay, now I'm going to take the peachy beige neutral on the inner portion of my lids, and also applying that here in the inner corner of the eye. It's not necessarily the most brightening shade for me, but it will be fine. And because I will put the glittery shade, I won't bother too much with blending the green and the peachy nude together. So I'm going to take the liquid eyeshadow and apply just a little bit like this on the back of my hand. Even with the brush sometimes it's difficult to not go overzealous, but I'm going to take this shade and I'm going to start applying it over top of the green metallic from the Climax palette, but I'm also going to take it over top of the peachy beige, because in a very like light and sheer layer it's just going to add this really interesting almost duochrome effect to that shade. Oh, I really think this is going to turn out super pretty, especially in like low lighting. And here we have Sparkle Moment. Oh, that looks so pretty. Lisa Eldridge Spirited Away on the lips. This one of her luxuriously loosens. Honestly, I love this look. I just think these two were sort of like made for each other. Also, this one looks really pretty with the Lancome Bronze Absolute Quint, which is the other way I have used this eyeshadow as a topper for the olive green shade in there. Again, this is going to look glorious on its own, but I did show you how Emily and Zora sort of look on their own, and I also wanted to demo for you the way that I would personally incorporate these into my makeup routine, which is a little bit more like toppers. Base is done, and I'm going to take Bronze Mahogany from Pat McGrath to bronze up. Now, this part of the video will also serve as my first impression and demo of the new Lisa Eldridge eyeliners. Let me tell you, when Lisa announced she was releasing something, I thought maybe we're getting concealer, because a while back I saw someone selling her concealer on Vinted, like someone from Italy. So I'm assuming someone who is in touch with the lab which makes her concealer. Really unfortunate, but someone was selling it. So I was like, well, probably it's concealer. It's not concealer. She released eye pencils, and a lot of you were actually on to the hint that it might be an eye pencil. I wasn't really paying attention, if I'm being honest. So apparently she had done quite a lot of like structured like eyeliner type looks on her IG, and people were assuming that based on that and the little image where the Lisa Eldridge logo seemed a bit distorted, as if it was like wrapped around something round, would be eyeliners. And I even messaged with a couple of you and I was like, I have zero, like sub-zero interest in eyeliners. She's not going to get me with eyeliners. The rookie mistake I always make with Lisa Eldridge videos, even though I know the effect that they have on me, is I go and watch her freaking reveal videos. And then by the end of those, she could sell me stale molded bread and I would buy it like it's hotcakes, because I am so easily influenced by her. I like her. I love the way she describes things. She's just an excellent saleswoman. So by the end of the video, I was fully convinced that I need not one, but several of those eyeliners. I think for the biggest reason I was attracted to them in the end of the day was the fact that a lot of the colors she's offering are colors that I use a lot. Warmer browns, green, and then I had to pick up the most unique color in the collection, which is the shade Renaissance Gold. Renaissance Gold or Renaissance Gold? I have the feeling that both of them are possible, but I think maybe the British pronunciation is Renaissance Gold. I could go and rewatch her video, but I'm too lazy for that. For blush, I'm also going to dip into Pat McGrath Labs. This is the shade Paradise Glow, which is one of her duos, and I'm basically just going to like put my brush into both of the colors and apply that very, very carefully. Actually, I need to remove some of the excess because I went a bit overboard, and one of the shades in here is Paradise Venus, which is like way too dark for me. So now we're going to have to do a little bit of blending here. So I did pick up 3 of the shades in the end, even though I found them, I'm gonna be honest with you, shockingly expensive. These are more expensive than her lip liners. They're more expensive even than her liquid Lurex eyeshadows. They're closing in on 30 euros, which is, it is absolutely outrageous for me to be paying so much for eyeliner, let me tell you, because my collection consists primarily of Essence liners, like the twisty ones that you can find in the drugstore for like 2 euros a piece. And they do a pretty decent job. Not to mention that for years now, my personal favorite, you know, pencil type of product to apply in my waterline and to use basically for the purposes that she's marketing these to be used for, I have been a huge fan of the Kiko eyeshadow sticks. So these like very chunky thingies that you can use as your, I don't know, waterline to smudge, as your eyeshadow, to use as liners on your upper lashes. Honestly, I've been a huge fan of these for years because they used to come in an array of beautiful colors. Not anymore. I think now the selection is a little bit more limited. They're not super expensive. And in my waterline, they last forever. You saw how beautiful that blue was in the first look that I did. Everyone's been going crazy over that blue. Unfortunately, it was an older color that I don't think you can find anymore. But with that said, that thing lasted on my waterline the whole day. So I love these Kiko eyeshadow sticks. They're some of my absolute favorites. Okay, this is a bit more like a classic, you know, I've been at the beach kind of color, so I'm also going to use it that way. Alright, so for my highlighter, I'm going to take my beloved Golden Nectar. So they arrived yesterday, and I already swatched them. I posted the swatches on my Instagram, and I figured today is as good as day as ever to test these out, and also for me to demo for you the last liquid Lurex that I received together with the eyeliner order, which was the shade Titania. Titania seemed like a very interesting shade, and actually from description and from the way it looks, I actually think it is basically the liquid Lurex version of Renaissance Gold. Oh, speaking of Renaissance Gold, that's a little bit of a funny story. So the eye pencils arrived, and then I don't usually pay too much attention to like the outside cardboard box packaging. Like I look at it, I look up some of the information on the back in case I'm interested, like where they're made and stuff like that. But I don't like keep them around. I don't even usually show them in my reviews because I just don't care. But I kept the packaging of Renaissance Gold because I wanted to show it to you. So all of the other ones had like just like the golden, writing in terms of the name. And this one was the only one that came with a little sticker on it. And my first instinct was not to open the pencil and swatch it. My first instinct was to find out what the hell is up with the sticker. Why is there a sticker? So I peeled it off to reveal this. I am not sure my camera is properly focusing, also because this is very reflective. But at first glance I was like, oh, someone made a little typo. And then I looked again and I was like, this is not a typo, this is legit like very misspelled, because there are at least 2 letters missing in here. So no wonder they stuck the sticker on top, because it is like super fucking misspelled. And then my next question was, okay, where are these made? Because it must be a country where they like super cannot spell the word Renaissance. They're made in Germany. So then I went to look, how do you write Renaissance in German? And it is literally the same spelling. So I'm a bit baffled. Wherever it is that they made these pencils, who spelled Renaissance so wrong, is my question. I'm going to set everything with my little sponge and Fix Plus. So that's a little fun tidbit for you before we actually start applying the colors. Now for the rest, they swatched very creamy, very intensely pigmented. They are more intensely pigmented than what so far has been the best, you know, pencil liner formula in my collection, which are a few very old Urban Decay pencils. So let me quickly show you the eye pencils. So the eye pencils come in like this very sleek black packaging. And you can basically see here the color of the eye pencil indicated. So like I said, I have the shades Renaissance Gold, which is I think the most interesting one in the collection, because it is this blackened gold. I'm going to slightly smudge it for you, and I don't know whether you can see, this has actual like gold glitter in it. It is very, very interesting. Then we've got the shade Night Forest. Green is one of my most used pencil liners. It is a beautiful dark green. Supposedly there are green and blue glitter specks in here, but I don't know that I can see those. This looks much less glittery compared to the Renaissance Gold, if I can even detect glitter at all in here. It's just a beautiful like deep forest green color, which thankfully isn't too blue based. I was a little afraid it would be too blue based, and I prefer my greens to be more on like the olivey side, and this one is perfect. It is not too olive, but it is also not too blue based. And finally, one of my most used types of shades is a warm brown. I just love a warm brown in my waterline. I don't know, these are like so soft and they apply such a punch. And I'm just slightly also blending them out so that you can really see the color and the fact that they are quite malleable. So this is a shade Burnt Amber. There was a deeper brown in the collection as well, and I was considering maybe picking that up, but realistically I wanted something that is not too much of a deep brown, because these types of browns literally are my favorite to use. And finally, we have the liquid Lurex in the shade Titania. I haven't really swatched this one for you or shown it to you because it will arrive to you. Let's quickly swatch that one as well, since you haven't really seen it on my channel yet. And I'm going to swatch it here right underneath and lightly blend it out so that you can see how exceptionally similar it is to Renaissance Gold. Look at that. So just for the sake of showing you as much as possible of these eyeliners, today I'm actually going to use both Burnt Amber and Renaissance Gold. And I'm only going to forego using Night Forest for the time being, but I will come and update you or just include it in a different video later on. And I'm going to pair that with, obviously, Titania and also my YSL Clutch Quad in the shade Casaba Spices. I've had like a little pile of eyeshadow palettes here on my desk that I haven't really used in a while, and this is the last palette of my pile that I really wanted to use again on the short term. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to first apply the Burnt Amber color here on my upper lashes, and I'm going to sort of like blend it out here so that it creates definition on my lower lashes. And then I'm going to apply this brown, deeper brown shade over top of that and on my lid. And then over top of that I am going to apply Titania. And to complete the look on my lower lash line, I'm going to use Renaissance Gold. So let's go one eye at a time, because I'm not sure how fast these set. But I'm just going to apply a line of the Burnt Amber shade right here. And then I'm going to take my pencil brush from Sonia G and I'm going to blend that lightly. And for the time being, This is still quite creamy and quite malleable. Supposedly at some point it's going to set and it will not really move anymore, but I'm just kind of like smudging it out like this to create a little bit of definition. I really like the tone of this brown because it is exactly the type of brown that I think really enhances my brown eyes. I'm barely touching my skin, by the way. If anyone was curious how these are applying, there's no tugging. They're really soft and creamy. There's absolutely, like, I barely touch my skin and so much pigment is coming off. So in that respect, you know, they better be super pigmented for being almost 30 euros a piece. They need to last a really long time. So I'm doing the same, kind of like smudging it out. And I'm going to take a fluffy like Max 17 type of brush. This is from M-Brush by Maxineska and this is the number 06. And I'm going to take the dark brown shade and start to gently apply it on my lid and over burnt amber to create that like light brown smoky eye. Don't know that you're going to really see that much from a burnt amber anymore, but the idea was more to like demo how this works out than really have it super incorporated into the look. I kind of added it as like a last minute decision because I was originally only planning on using Renaissance Gold on my lower lashes, but then I thought, maybe we can incorporate another one of these pencils. And I'm just blending out the brown shade. The brown shade is blending out super nicely and you can really shear it out to, you know, not be too much of an intense brown, which is very nice. It makes this palette very versatile. I am going to use the creamsicle shade as a brow bone highlight because I do actually use shades like this as brow bone highlights, and I do like how smoothing this shade is. It's like it has something in the formula which smoothens the skin, so I really like that. Especially the skin under my brows tends to be quite textured. And of course, you know the drill by now. I'm going to take Titania and I'm going to apply a little bit on the back of my hand, and I will use a flat shader brush just like the one I used yesterday to apply Titania all over my lids, because I think it is going to look beautiful with a dark brown underneath. So I'm just going to start pressing this shade here onto my lids, and if I feel like I have too much product and I want it to apply as a bit more of a sheer layer, I just remove the excess on the back of my hand and then I continue to smudge it out. Give it a little blend in the crease so that it's a bit more seamless. And I definitely think this is much less sparkly and sheeny compared to the other three shades. In my inner corners, I'm actually going to do a little bit of a blend of this shade and the topper shade from the YSL Clutch Quad. And I'm just going to dip back and forth, but I'm not going to apply it as it is because then it's really just not going to stick around my inner corners very long. I'm going to spritz with a little bit of Fix Plus to wet the shade, especially the sparkly one, so that it has a better chance of sticking to my lids. Especially my inner corners, where I unfortunately tend to touch my eyes a lot. And it's just going to apply much more metallic and as a sheen if you wet the brush. So mixing the two shades together kind of creates this like light champagne metallic, which is a little bit what I was going for. I'm also going to use the burnt amber shade to tightline my upper lashes. That is something that I always do, but I usually use an Essence pencil for that. And I'm curious how this is going to last, and also it being this pigmented, whether it's going to irritate the eyes. So far I'm not really feeling any sort of irritation, so that's good. And now to the other fun part of this video, which is applying the shade Renaissance Gold in my waterline and lower lash line. And again, I'm going to use my little pencil brush here from Sonia to also blend this out. So I'm running this here in my waterline and lightly on the lower lashes first, and then I'm going to blend it out. And I'm mostly curious how long this is going to last and whether it's going to smudge. It does look very interesting though. I really don't have anything quite like it in my collection. You can clearly see that there is quite a dark base to this shade. So if you were thinking, oh, a nice neutral gold, this is definitely not just a gold. Oh, okay. Under artificial lighting, Titania is actually very, very sparkly. It is possible that because it's like also extra overcast today in my bedroom, you really can't see it, but like under artificial lighting, I really hope that you can see how sparkly Titania is. Really, really pretty. I completed the look with Flash 3 from Pat McGrath Labs. It is one of her Blitz Trance shades because it has beautiful gold glitter in it. You know, we're just going for a full face of gold glitter today. I couldn't really think of a shade from Lisa Eldridge that would kind of like perfectly complement this look, and then all of a sudden I remembered this shade and I was like, yes, this is the shade we're going for. So in terms of the new eyeliners from Lisa Eldridge, honestly this is just a first impression. I think they apply beautifully, they're super easy to work with. Whether they stay well in the waterline specifically, I'm going to update you. I'm going to include in my description box how Renaissance Gold wore throughout the day. Did it smudge? Did it stay in place? Was a lot of it still there at the end of the day? That kind of thing. Quick eyeliner check-in. It is about 11 hours ago, 10-11 hours ago that I left for work. I went to work, I had a singing lesson. I have actually touched my eyes a little bit, so it's possible that I have wiped off a little bit of the eyeliner, but I want to check how it looks like. So I think it's still like on my lower lashes. I didn't notice it smudging super ugly and me like crying ugly eyeliner tears. And I see some of it still in my waterline. Even though, you know, like I said, I was touching my eyes, especially this one, I was touching it quite a bit earlier. So I think it looks pretty decent. Now, I will say this, Renaissance Gold is probably not the best one to really judge how it performs on the lower lash line, just because I feel like something like the dark green or the brown one will be a little bit more telling, but this, I think, survived just fine. And my final verdict on the 4 liquid Lurex eyeshadows from Lisa Eldridge is basically I adore them. I am like super into them at the moment. I am really into like that kind of makeup where I combine my luxury eyeshadow formulas with a little bit of a sparkly topper in the form of a liquid eyeshadow. It's just like a new kind of application of makeup for me, and I always get excited when I find new and interesting ways to use my makeup. I'm hoping that this phase isn't going to like be over soon, because in the end of the day, these are liquid eyeshadows and I don't want them to go to waste, but I am super happy with the 4 colors that I picked out. I couldn't really pick a favorite if you asked me to. I think Emily is such a beautiful, like, it's a bit more of like a universally, you know, usable color because of the shade and the sparkles in here, especially if you are, you know, more into like taupe eyeshadows. I think this one is absolutely beautiful. If you want something very interesting in terms of the undertones, you like your greens but you're looking for something like a green that is a little bit more unique, definitely go for Anais, because Anais is this beautiful sage green loaded with sparkle. Then the shade Zora, I really like Zora, I really like the undertone, and it really looks like a chocolate brown. But Zora is the kind of eyeshadow that you may already have in your collection. So if you have stuff like Mink from Victoria Beckham, or what was the one, the liquid one from Pat McGrath that we talked about earlier, Platinum Bronze. I did compare these two in my, I want to say in my monthly roundup and empties. They're not the same, but they're pretty similar to each other. So I would say the shade Zora, gorgeous, beautiful, especially if you love one and done chocolate smoky eye, but the highest chance of you having something similar in your collection. The most unique out of the 4 has to be the shade Titania, just because of that very interesting, like, antique golden look to it, like with the dark base and like the antique golden glitter to it. It is very, very interesting, and contrary to what I thought, actually quite sparkly. I still don't think it is as sparkly as the other 3, but it is still quite a sparkly shade. I definitely wouldn't call it one of her straight up metallics. So I love all 4 of these and I highly recommend them if you are someone who enjoys liquid eyeshadows. I think they are really good quality. I have not had any issues with those creasing on me or the glitter falling off of my eyelids. I don't really use a glitter glue when I use these. I just use them over top of powder eyeshadows on their own, and I haven't had any issues with them. Anywho, since these are a very old release, I actually reckon a bunch of you already have this in your collection and you probably didn't need my 2 cents. I'm like really late to this party, but in case you haven't gotten any of those and you wanted to hear my opinion on them, then there you go. Or maybe one last thing I can say, because I think a lot of you are going to ask me this question: how do these compare to the liquid eyeshadows from Pat McGrath? In my opinion, they're rather comparable, like in terms of how they apply, how they wear, how they blend out, how they reveal a little bit more of that, like that beautiful wet sheen the more you blend them out. So to me, the formulas are extremely comparable. You just have to consider the shade ranges because they are slightly different in the end of the day. I think I'm going to close off this video because I really do need to get going to work. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to know which liquid Lurex eyeshadows you have in your collection, which ones are your favorite, are there colors that I'm really missing out on? Do let me know in the comment section below. As usual, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!